So as I was saying, this unit, we're doing partnership working in health and social care. Now, it's worth 20 credits.
Yeah.
It's a mandatory unit, and the aim of this unit is to provide the learners or provide yourself with the underpinning skills and knowledge required to develop productive partnership working with your own and other organizations.
Yeah.
So we're just going to be looking at, in other units, in other places, it's called multidisciplinary teams. In this unit, it's called partnership working. But to be honest, overall, it's the same thing. It's about how different services, how different organizations just come together and work together to provide the best quality of care for your service users. And also, like, within that, there's always going to be some plus points and some negative points. So we'll be covering a lot of different areas within this today.
Yeah.
So overall, there's 2 learning outcomes. Now, the grading structure of this is just a pass. So you've not got the pass, merit, or distinction, which is a lot simpler. So we'll be answering every single question on here. Today, we're looking at learning outcome 1, which is understand the main features and outcomes of partnership working. So you've got 4 assessment criteria in here. So 1.1 is describe key elements of partnership working with external organizations, colleagues, individuals, and families.
Yeah.
Then 1.2 is evaluate the importance of partnership working with, again, external organizations, colleagues, individuals, and their families.
Yeah.
1.3, we're going to look at explain how to overcome barriers to partnership working. So first, we're going to look at what the barriers are, and then we'll talk about how to overcome them.
Yeah.
And then 1.4 is explain how to deal with conflict that may occur in partnership working. Now, when you're actually doing your assignment, scroll down towards the bottom. You've got indicative content. I just want to point out what is for what. This element section here is for 1.1. This better outcome section is for 1.2. This and this are for 1.3.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit big. And then the last important section is 1.4. Just to break it down for you, because otherwise it's a little bit confusing because things can encroach into the others and they can sort of merge into one.
Yeah.
So when you're doing assignment, it's a good idea. Just make sure you're covering these points within each of your answers. And to be honest, the PowerPoint that we're going to go through does cover 99% of these anyway. So as long as you're following the PowerPoint and this, you'll be fine with your assignments.
I think I have actually done this unit already, or a more brief one. I have started to do my level 4 MBQ for our company. However, the funding got pulled on it, which was why I was moved on to do my level 5. And I have done an awful lot of work on my level 4.
You probably, do you remember what the name of that unit was?
I'm just looking through it now. I'm just trying to find it.
Working in teams or partnership working or multidisciplinary, something like that.
I've got lead communication in adult care, lead inclusive practice in adult social care. What else have I got? There was one because I remember going through it all.
Yeah. Sometimes what happens is we have like teamwork, partnership working, we have it within health and social care sector on level 3 and level 4. So you might have done, so whatever you've done, just see if it applies, use the same information.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then if you've got most of it done, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's get this onto the slideshow. So the first few slides, like I said, they're just going to be just understanding the history of partnership working, what led to it, and just understanding partnership working in total, to be honest. So a few of these. So we've got partnership working. It's been around for the last 40 years or so for different health and social care systems. And with it, there have been a lot of different solutions that have been presented along the way. Now, there was previously there wasn't really much of a system where everything was together, and now it's come together. We've got a lot of things on like person-centered care that have been developed just to keep your, service users at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
Now, there have been attempts to do partnership working, and sometimes these have worked out well, sometimes they've not worked out well, but we try to have them address like the welfare system, the needs and requirements of what is actually needed for each area, for each person. There's different legislations that have been set up, and it was assumed that it was easy to differentiate between those who were sick and had health needs and those who were disabled and had social needs. Now, it wasn't, what happened earlier was that you thought if you're sick, you get your medicine and you're done. Healthcare, mental care wasn't really focused on as much. But obviously now, as we've developed, as we've become more aware of the different needs, that has come more into play, So we had the underlying assumption that you had different organizations with different structures and different working, and trying to get them to work together was quite a big, difficult thing. Not everybody had the same aims or the same outcomes in mind. So partnership working can be a bit difficult depending on who you're actually working with.
Yeah.
Now, when we had Tony Blair's Labour landslide victory, a lot of promises actually came at that time saying that we're going to have a lot more money put into the NHS. There's going to be a lot more patient care, a lot of promises and a lot of things like we want to build stronger communities. And at that time, the foundations were laid for a better welfare state and community care. Now, obviously, things have developed and they've become much, much better than they were, say, about 40, 50 years ago. But obviously, this is a work in progress. It'll carry on. So when we looked at this, according to the Department of Health, the NHS Department of Health, the shifting the balance of power within the NHS, so this report was done in 2001, the delivery of services was focused on partnership working, not just between health and social care, but also between the service users themselves. So it's really, again, like person-centered approach, is bringing people more aware and they're actually getting considered as to, they've got a choice, they've got a decision themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this set out the implementation of strategy for the NHS plan, but it was more of a dominant role of the health rather than social care. So it was more focused on health workers being dominant within this, and social care was sort of like an afterthought. But now we've got local strategic partnerships that have been put together. So we've had the introduction of the Health Improvement Modernisation Plan, so the HIMP, and it's working on making equal partners between health and social care now.
Yeah.
So each health authority is obliged to produce a HIMP. So it needs to set a strategic framework for improving health, and it also needs to modernise how its services are planned. So who they're going to work with, which authorities they're working with, which voluntary organisations they're working with. So you can't just, to be honest, having a partnership and just choosing someone just so you can get extra funding out of it isn't always the best thing to do.
No.
It's always, because you need to make sure that you're actually working towards, you want a decent partnership, you want to work towards the same outcomes, or be able to offer things that suit you as well. There's no point in you partnering with a school if you've got nothing to do with a school. But for a care home, they can partner with the school, because then for residents that might be lonely, school children could come, like a few years ago, they had that thing in Scotland, I think it was, where children were visiting care homes and they were learning things from the older residents, and the residents were happy. So when you do partnership working, it's there to help you deliver better outcomes. So partnership working is seen as the heart of, providing seamless care and also to avoid fragmentation. There's also been a major shift towards the outcomes that the services deliver. So it's in accordance to the new outcomes framework for the performance assessment of adult social care. So just actually seeing that, not the fact that they're just there, but just to make sure that what they're providing is covering what needs to be covered, that you're actually addressing the needs of the people that you're going towards. We're almost finished with the historical bit. So we've got outcomes for professionals. So people that are within partnerships actually say that they is rewarding, is stimulating, and also that they get to have look at new approaches. They get a bit more training, a bit more satisfaction, and it just gets rid of all that boredom that they might have got used to, or just been doing the same odd tasks every single day. They get to experience different things. Now, some studies that have explored partnership working within health and social care have showed that there's a gain in confidence amongst the professionals. There's improved relationships between each of the professionals and also the relationships with families. Then again, there's been negative impacts. So because of the expansion of new roles, sometimes there can be a bit of confusion amongst the team members. You're not sure what's going on. You might not even like change, to be honest. You might be happy and think, we're fine. We don't need somebody coming in and doing some of our roles. Yeah. And then you have role demarcation. So when I say demarcation, it's like where you're trying to establish your limits and boundaries about what a role is. There's separating what work can be done and what work cannot be done. So if you're in an organization where someone's used to doing a lot more than they're doing now, it might feel like it's they've been demoted, to be honest. So that can be an issue. And then for the service users, it's actually mainly been good outcomes for them. They're able to be seen by a lot more people. They're not having multiple appointments for one particular thing. Different services are meeting together, so you can have like multi-agency case review meetings where everybody actually knows what's going on. A lot of the services have actually gone to having preventative and early intervention focus. So you're catching things a lot quicker because there's more people involved. And then you're doing multitasking when you are actually seeing people. So it has been much better. So that was just what partnership working is, the good points, the bad points, and how it came about. Now we're going to go on to 1.1, which is describe key elements of partnership working with external organizations, colleagues, individuals, and families. So on here, I've just put down a couple of slides, what the key elements are. And when you're doing your assignment, just make sure you're getting these terminology. And I've highlighted them in blue just to make it a little bit easier within those. So the key elements of partnership working is that you have joint agreements. So you're working together, you have shared goals, shared outcomes, you have mutual goals that you're actually wanting to work towards. You might be sharing services, you might be sharing resources. So, and also you're sharing a patient care. So if somebody, say, lived in London first, they had their local services working there, looking after them, but then they've moved into Manchester. So with partnership working, you can actually go across regions. Earlier, what happened was some people would fall off the scale. So if they've moved elsewhere, if they've done something, if they've gone in an area where they're not being seen, they might have just probably not ended up getting healthcare for a decent amount of time until they re-registered and so on. But it really helps. Another key element is good communication, and this is with everything, to be honest. Share your information. Be open, communicate, make sure you're actually getting in touch regularly. It might be via patient records, you might have care plans, so you don't physically have to talk to each other, just make sure you update your systems. You might even want shared systems and so on, so it goes without saying, to be honest. You need to have a strong leadership and trust between partners, so that's another key element. So when within anything you do, to be honest, if you're working together and you have barely anyone talking to each other, or if you're not, even delegating or telling each other what your aims are, it's not going to work, is it? So you need to build a good rapport and try and trust each other, but that happens over time.
Yeah.
Then the Health and Social Care Act also is another element. So this act states that the clinical commissioning group, CCG, must, in the exercise of its function, have regard to so they need to reduce inequalities between patients with respect to the ability to access health services. So you need to make sure that, the patient, if you're giving them certain care, if somebody's an asthma sufferer, if they can't afford those inhalers, or if it's for an adult, they're not going to go and get them. They're expensive. They're almost £10 a prescription now. So you need to be making sure that it's possible for them to do, or help them in a certain way, maybe towards paying. And then the last slide on this, that's a more important point, that you need to have openness, trust, share your goals and values. So be clear and honest. If a mistake has been done, tell your team that this happened. There's no point in hiding anything. Everything comes out. Make sure you're consistent. So if you say you're going to do something, if you're going to meet a target, do it. Because if you're not following your points, then another person's falling back that's waiting for you. So try and do everything as consistently as you can. If you can't do it, let them know that I'm going to be late. Make sure you communicate. And then also avoid the duplication of services, because it costs a lot of time and money. Even with you physically going somewhere, there's no point. So if someone's going to, say, go and take blood pressure for someone, or they want to go and give them medicinal services, maybe they can have a welfare check at the same time as well, just to find out maybe there's another member within the family that can be checked at the same time. So get things done at once. So that's 1.1. Like I'm saying, it's quite simple. It's easy. It's not. It's things that you probably already know, to be honest, in here.
Yeah. It's kind of everything I have to put in my job role at the moment, anyway.
Yeah. And that 1.2 is very similar again. Before, we were just looking at describing key elements, but now we're looking at the importance. So it's very similar again.
Yeah.
And then again, it's with external organizations, colleagues, individuals, and families. So we just bunched it all together here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at partnership working, it's actually had a lot of changes over the years. There's a lot of improvements. I mean, things go wrong, you learn from them, and then you make them better. I mean, that's the way it should work, and it is working in a way. So partnership working has led to a lot of better outcomes. So the service user now, so your patient now is at the heart of the program. They're at the heart of the care. So they're asked their opinion. They're also taken into consideration if they can keep up with certain treatments or the care plans. So when we look at that, we actually look at the biopsychosocial needs and just check if they're taken into consideration. Now, these are some of their needs here. So you've got the biology, psychology, and social context, and within the heart is their health. So when you're looking at psychology, have they got the right coping skills? Do they have the right behavior? Do they have the right learning attitude or beliefs? Can they actually keep up with what you're telling them to do? Now, I remember after I had my first child, I had him by C-section, and I was told the first time I was in hospital, I was kept there for 5 days, and I was given a series of injections over those 5 days just to make sure there was no clotting or just. When I had my third child, a good 8 years later, I was second day, as soon as I could walk, after my C-section with him, I was sent home, and I was given a series of injections, and I was just, so it's changed. I mean, they did evaluate if I was able to do it, if I could keep up with it, and they determined that I was able to, inject myself with this medicine and so on. So yeah, it does take into factor your own, if you're capable or not. So it looks at your social context, your background, your cultural needs, and so on. And then also, like, if you've got any physical illness, if you're asking to get up and bathe yourself, are you physically able to do that? So if not, then you might still send on. Yeah, exactly. And then we've got a whole lot of other points here. So there's a mutual respect for each of the multidisciplinary teams. So when I said multidisciplinary, it's same as partnership working. So each member has a job to do, and they're also trained within that. So don't undermine someone and say you don't know what you're doing. They probably will have a lot of training in it. We need to look at the constructive approach. So if there's an issue, try and solve it. Learn from it, think about it, see how it can be developed.
Yeah.
Learn from each other. So training and mentoring across your different services. You can have coaching. So each one is a different aspect to it, where mentoring is a longer process and coaching is probably, say, a conversation or a couple of days together, but you can learn from it, to be honest. Have a wider collaboration. So have different services working with each other. So you can have care workers, social services, schools, so on. Now, when I was thinking about this, what came to my mind about collaboration was, if you remember, I think you'll definitely know about this, like the Victoria Klimbe case and the baby B case. Yeah. And how with Victoria Klimbe, unfortunately, she was tortured by her great aunt and by the boyfriend. But she was seen by a lot of different occasions by social workers. She was noticed in school. She went into the hospital after she had boiling kettle water poured over her head. I mean, it's just unfortunately that we didn't have these type of services at that time, because it could have saved her life. So that's, whenever I think about collaboration, that is. And then with the baby B case again, he had an extensive 8-month period of where he was getting harmed. He had all the physical injuries, and such a tiny little child to have that. So I have nothing but respect for all of this work that's being done together now. So again, sometimes we have good points and bad points. In anything, if two members of staff, even if you join a new job and you go in, there's going to be a learning curve, isn't there? When you first go in, you're going to make mistakes, or you're going to learn how the people around you work and adapt yourself for it. So it takes time. And then the last slide on this, the importance again. So another part of importance is you get additional funding, you get mutual advantages, you get resources, so you're able to access specialist equipment, you get extra finances, and the best part that I think, and I believe in this a lot, is your training and your development. So you learn from each other.
Definitely.
You're going to meet statutory requirements. So just the legislations like the Equality Act, Health and Social Care Act, Human Rights, Health and Social, is all of these you're actually making sure that you're covering.
Yeah.
Get better coordination within the packages. So different services working together, you can have a bigger a place of expertise. And then also you get the voluntary sector. They've got an involvement. So they do community services, activities. We've got a community service close to where I live called Rainbow Surprise. Now, originally what they started off doing was just having like walking groups on early mornings, just to get everybody out and about. They had like in the park they do fun fairs every now and then. But what they've actually developed now into during COVID is handing out food parcels. They've got in touch with schools, where schools are getting together like tins and jars and things for them. So they're all working together, and they've also got in touch with the social services just to identify which families might need more assistance. So it's nice that these services can be evolved as well. So we've looked at 1.1 and 1.2. Do you have any questions?
No. No, all right, if I'm honest.
Yep. So I think it's quite simplified, isn't it? It's not something that... Yeah. Then 1.3, explain how to overcome barriers to partnership working. So we're going to look at barriers and we're going to look at how to overcome them. So barriers to partnership can happen a lot more, especially when you've not got a mutual respect between each other. Sometimes some professionals will think that they're better than the others. Sometimes you might have health care professionals coming into a care home and saying, right, you're doing this wrong, that wrong, I see this mistake, and nobody likes to be told what may or may not be wrong.
Yeah.
It might be true, it might not be true. Some care homes in the past, and to be honest, even now, probably do need a bit of prompting, and everybody can do with a bit of improving. It's always, it's even like when we're at work, we're always getting appraised, aren't we? So we get our a discussion, and it's, the good things are fantastic to hear, but when we hear the, like, you could speak slower, or you rush things, or you do these things, we don't like it, do we? But it helps us to improve.
Definitely. We're quite lucky where especially with being a team leader, because we class as frontline management. But I also do a lot of work still on floor, because I always made it very clear that I was a carer to start off with, and I never wanted to lose that within, no matter how high I got within the company. And with me still being on floor and doing my care side of things as well, with my care plans and everything else.
Yes.
I'm quite lucky with my team that I've got, because of working with them so closely and on floor with them still. I'm still very able to go, right, you're doing this fantastically, but let's try doing it this way.
Yeah.
To get any improvement. So I suppose all the time we're working, we're always doing supervisions and appraisals whilst with my team, because it's just working in different ways to improve it so that the resident we're caring for has the best suited care to suit their needs.
And then you're also consistently observing, aren't you? So even if it's unofficially, you know, and I think it helps your colleagues, that fact that you're still on the floor with them, because if you're not, they'll be like, what does she know what she's talking about? She doesn't do it. Yeah, they can't say it.
I mean, our deputy managers, bless them, when they got me into, they are very much office staff, and they sit and kind of just go through the legislations, the policies and procedures for the building, and sort of order the medication and things like that. Well, I never wanted to lose my off-floor practice, because of the case being in an emergency. I need to know what's going on, and I need to know about them residents and how they are on a personal level. I mean, we had it where, unfortunately, one of my residents I was caring for very closely, he ended up choking to death. Now, it was me and my deputy manager in there, and because she had been on floor for such a long time, trying to deal with that scenario, she was no good with it.
Yeah.
Because the floor practice had been lost, whereas I was very lucky. It was like, right, okay, I've got to do this, this and this is what's happening, crack on with it, because I'd had the floor practice. So not that it didn't overwhelm me, because it did, because it was my first time ever doing CPR and mouth-to-mouth and everything else, but I hadn't lost my floor practice of knowing how to deal with an emergency.
I mean, it completely helps, because if you're not doing something for such a long time and you get used to sort of like paper pushing in a way, and you know, sitting at a desk, then you do. I mean, it's just like people say you don't forget how to ride a bike, but when you do initially get back on, you're going to be wobbly, aren't you? So it certainly helps that. I mean, it's good, because it's nice that you've got to the level where you are, but you're still trying to keep to what you enjoy the best. So it's good to have best of both worlds.
Yes, I am very lucky. I mean, I have opened my mouth and made it quite clear of what I want, and bless them, they've been fantastic and followed that, because I never just wanted to be someone that was in an office. That's not what I'm about. To me, that's not what care is about either.
No, exactly. I mean, I sitting behind a desk and thinking this is how things should be, and that, but having that personalism with your patients, with your colleagues, and so on. They probably don't even look at you as leadership sometimes. They probably end up give you that honest opinions. And,
God, yes, you know, very happy, because if there's a problem or a concern, my girls don't even hesitate. They come to me, they tell me what the issue is, and we can deal with it there and then, because, I mean, they know work's work and friends are friends, so they know I've got that professional level of right enough. If I tell them enough, sort of thing, enough's enough. However, I'm lucky. Like you said, they'll come to me, Ashley, this isn't working, or we're finding that a hoist isn't working, or a stand aid, blah, 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 and we go, right, not a problem, we can just sort it out there and then, because they're not worried about coming to talk to me of what I might say back, because they still know I've got a level in me, whereas I'm still a carer regardless of everything else I do.
And it's nice to have that comfort with each other. I mean, they've got a trust in you, they're able to approach you really easily, and I always think that leads to a better working environment when you know that if you're keeping things lodged in, or, you know, gossiping behind other people's backs. It doesn't help anyone. But if you've got someone there that is, you know, someone like you there that can actually say, right, yeah, I've got the power and I can make these changes, it's a lot easier.
Most definitely. I mean, we are very lucky. I've got a fantastic team. I mean, I've been working there with the girls 6 years. So we all know each other's boundaries. The girls know what I'll tolerate and what I won't. And it works for all of us. I have a fantastic team. I am incredibly lucky.
Oh, no, that's fantastic to have in those cases. Because sometimes what you end up having is, you know, if you come down from what you're working or you're just coming in to do the odd appraisal every 6 months or so, someone's going to think, oh, what's she doing? She's got a lot more. She thinks she's better than us, or, you know, who are they to talk? So it gets into that issue where you might have that, you know, like a power dynamic going on. But in this way, where you're more hands-on, it really does help.
Definitely.
So with this, like I was saying, sometimes you do get people saying that, oh, some people, in some situations, you do have some members of staff or professionals thinking that they're higher up and they're a bit better than someone, or this person's just a cleaner, we don't need to speak to them in this certain way, we can just ignore their hellos and highs. But I remember working with in my early education years, good number of years ago. I remember working with a fantastic head teacher who would keep her office door open consistently. Anybody was allowed to go into her, speak to her, regardless of what. You know, you didn't really have to make an appointment with her. And she treated any member of staff, whether they were the leadership team, they were a teacher, a teaching assistant, one of the ladies helping, you know, working within the dining hall, or even a cleaner, whoever it was, she had the utmost respect for everyone, and there wasn't like that a situation where some people were regarded as higher than the others. So it's a nice partnership, you know, it's a nice equality, it really helps. And that environment was brilliant to work in.
I can imagine, I really can.
When we look at the barriers again, going back into this, we just need to emphasize that we actually build a good quality of relationships. We try and get trust. You're going to get trust within each other when you listen to each other and you talk to each other honestly, you know.
Yes.
So it does help. Within that, so we've looked at some of the barriers where some people will think that they're better than the others. Others will say, why are you coming into my workplace? You might sometimes have financial barriers where you don't physically have the money to do things. And then you might also have like time constraints. So if you've got a certain set of things to do, but you've not got enough time and a patient wants to talk to you, what if you don't have that 10 minutes to sit down and talk to them? That can be an issue. So to overcome these barriers, I've got a few points in here. So the fundamental part of improving your working relationships is to make sure that you've got a joined up working. So blur your boundaries, work together. Yeah. So joined up working also, it can be enhanced within your paperwork. So share your communication systems. You might want to have shared online systems. You might want to have access to certain things, or even if it's paperwork, make sure you're keeping it updated so everyone knows exactly what's going on. Education and training. So do your workforce development. Make sure that, say, example, if you've gone for a training now, you can go back and you can teach your colleagues exactly the procedures you've learned or the new legislations you've learned. You can pass it on. You can be as a mentor to them. So share the information. So when we say effective communication is extremely important to partnership working, because some people can feel quite isolated sometimes when you've got partnership working. If you've just been set to, you're going to visit this, your job is to go out, visit patients day in, day out, but you might not have, go into the office, you might not see anyone, so you've got to make sure that you get in touch with them. Have WhatsApp groups, you know, for your whole, for your team, you know, where you're just discussing work. Yeah. You know, make sure everyone's in the loop. Email them, let them know what's going on, even if it's something that doesn't apply to them. I know that when there's things that might not physically apply to me, but I like to know what's going on within the company, and it's always nice to know about these. This person's going on this training, or maybe I can ask them questions about it later. You know, so it's good.
Yeah, we're looking at the advertiser every day. So we're very lucky in that sense, regardless if it doesn't apply to my girls or if it's coming up in 3 days' time management-wise that they don't need to be worried about or anything. It still gets meant to be that handover, so everyone in the company can't say, well, I didn't know nothing about that.
Exactly. It's really important. I mean, it's just human nature. We want to know as much information as we can. And then when you're given that, you're happier at work, to be honest.
Definitely. We're nosy. Yeah. That's what human nature is. We're nosy. It's one of them things.
You do. I mean, whether or not, it's got nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter. I just need to know what's going on. I'm like that. I need to know what's going on. So, again, interaction, it needs to be ongoing. So whichever agency you're in, just make sure you convince you, but also say if now you do care work, I'm more on the educational side. If you come and start telling me some jargon while working together, I might not understand you. So make sure that if you use jargon, explain what that means, or if someone notice on their, you can actually normally see their faces and you're like, this person looks blank. Or what I like to do is if there's something that I've had to search up, or if I'm not sure if somebody they may know, there's things you already know, but I like to just explain it just to be on the safe side, just to make sure. And someone will say, oh yeah, I already know that, so that's okay. Then include your patients' views and also their carers' views, because they're going to be part of this process. They need to be able to know exactly what is happening and also have their own, viewpoints taken into consideration, because there's lots of different cultures, there's lots of diversity, people like to do things differently, and sometimes when you take into their own views, you might have a different type of creativity as to, how to make somebody at ease the next time you see them, or maybe there's a different way I could have done things. It's nice to learn.
Yeah.
So also, build relationships with individuals within the organization. I know that when I'm looking at my younger son, we're working on his weight, because we're working together. I've had the same lady, Stephanie, working with me for the past year. We're helping him with his diet, we're helping him with his daily exercise, and I know that whenever I need any information, I can go and speak to Stephanie, and she's the person to go to. So I've got that individual. I mean, I might not even have the organization's phone number, but I've got hers. I've got an email. It's nice to have that one person that you can refer to no matter what. It's a good relationship to build.
This is it.
Yeah. So actively participate. So be engaged, be ready to work, have regular meetings, share information, and just be able and happy to actually join in or even share information. Sometimes not everybody learns the way you do. So you might have someone who has to be told 3 different times and then explained a different way completely for the 4th time. So don't lose patience with them, just help them as much as you can. And then the last point on here is engage the families. So make sure that they know exactly what's going on, have them in the loop, because they're the ones that are actually, if it's home care, they're going to be carrying out treatments or supporting their family members. So you need to have them on board as much as possible. And then one of the other important points that I think on here, you should always challenge discrimination. So sometimes you've got issues between ethnicities. You might some people might look down at other members of the team. They might think they're not equal. You might have issues where somebody might come in with poor personal hygiene, or maybe good at the job, but the hair is always unkempt, and everything else is fine, but they're just not looking neat. So in that case, you speak to them directly, and rather than have backbiting or gossiping or someone saying, no, I don't want to work with this person. So so obviously challenge discrimination, find out, get to the root of the problem as fast as you can. It happens by observation. So that was 1.3. We've done that. And we're going to go on to 1.4. So we're going to look at explain how to deal with conflict that may occur in partnership working.
Yeah.
So on this, We're going to look at how health and social care work, actually brings together separate organisations so that they can benefit from, their professional expertise and the power sharing and so on, so they can work together and have a bigger pool of talent. Now, the goals of the partnership are to empower the orders and quality of services provided. So you do have a lot of plus points that can come with partnership working.
Yeah.
There needs to be trust and respect between both partners or however many partners there are. And they need to be able to, not just one side of the partnership working more than the other, need to be working equally. And they need to actually be beneficial to the service user. So there's no point in one partnership offering services good for your service user, but then the other one not really doing much or not being applicable to them.
Yeah.
Now, lots of contributions can come together because of not working together. So you've got inefficiency of work disorder. You might have things like third barriers. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. They'll think, oh, it's Ash's job to do this. And I'll think, no, Ashton should have done this. So we need to know exactly what's going on. Exactly. You might have no accountability because, again, like you're saying, work hasn't been delegated properly. You don't know who's meant to do that. Like an unsurety of roles, so who knows what's going on? I don't know what my role is anymore. This person has come in, they're doing 50% of my job, so what am I meant to do?
Yeah.
You might also have be expecting someone else to be following up. So if there's two services working together, you've had one person go out and see someone or someone's talked to the patient, who's meant to follow up afterwards? And then again, bad communication. So that's one of the biggest issues, I think.
Definitely.
So how can we actually deal with these conflicts? So you've got to reduce your barriers to your resources. So delegate, share your duties, make sure you know exactly who's doing what. Even having a list on a notice board or having an email sent out and having people named and the jobs next to it, that really helps, I found. And
we have allocations at work, so the staff can see it in the morning of what they intended to do for the day.
Exactly, and then if someone sort of like thinks, oh, I've got a free moment now, what am I meant to be doing next? Because you forget things. You get busy, you might be stressed from life. It's nice to refer back to, rather than come running to you and saying, oh, I don't know what to do next. So, like, in this, if you're getting a welfare check, like if you've gone out for an appointment and you know you're going to do a welfare check, can you check the height and weight for that particular person at that same time as well, if they're under a certain service? Can you do their blood pressure? Have you got the training to do this? Are you able to do it? If so, then just do it. Because sitting at home waiting for someone to come and see you or going into an appointment is time consuming. It really does, ruin your day sometimes when you have to do these things. So it's nice to get everything done at once.
Definitely.
So within this, try to create a good service delivery. So be more visible, be consistent, communicate with your service users and also your partnerships. And then this approach normally just helps, and it's quite effective in building trust and, making sure that the working is going well.
Yeah.
So use a holistic approach, so an overall approach. Make sure you're looking at the whole person and that you're not just looking at the mental or your health needs. So look at both things. So in overall, you're looking at the wellness, emotional, physical, financial, intellectual, occupational. If someone's in a job that's really busy, they might not have time to stay at home and visit you, or they might just need like Zoom sort of meetings or whatever is applicable according to them. Look at the environment, the social status or the social needs, and also the spiritual needs. That'll come into cultural and religious as well. I mean, care work in general it's really hard, and when you put all these other things on top of it, it can make the job really difficult. So it's a difficult situation sometimes to be working in, but it's one of the most rewarding ones that you can work in as well.
Definitely.
And then we've got person-centered approach. So as we say, person-centered care is at the heart of everything. It helps you to support independence and so on. And then also things like the 6 C's, which are part of anything, care work, nursing, any type of liaison you have with your patients. So where you're being caring, compassionate, you're making sure that you're actually competent to follow out certain procedures that you can. Communicate with them, tell them exactly what's going on. Be courageous, have the courage to, say sometimes I can do this or I can't do this. Let your own colleagues know that please can you take over or can I help you instead? And then be committed to helping that person. So it's always nice to have these follow PCA. Definitely. And then finally, the last part of this, just make sure that you involve your parents, the relatives within the planning process. Because I know my son had to get his appendix removed a few months ago. This is my 14-year-old, the eldest. Now, he can't look after his scar or his operation site. He wasn't able to do any of these things. So they told me how to look after him, how to apply the bandages, when to call if there was concern, because I'd be doing the day-to-day care for him. And obviously there's things that he can do and he can't do. And he's a teenager. He wants to push the boundaries. He loves climbing and exercising and running around, but it can twinge because it's not been that long. So it's just putting the limits and barriers on down to saying, okay, you're hurting now, just stop for a little bit. But that's only because I've been told exactly what he can and can't do and how to look after it. It's good to have the relatives involved. So that was it. This is just one point. We looked at all of this. So we looked at partnership working, the key elements, the importance, looked at some barriers and how we can overcome them, and we looked at some types of conflicts and how we can deal with them today here. Now, I'm going to turn the recording off.